All right, tonight we've got Tessa Dick on here. Her new book, I've got it in my hands here, is Conversations with Philip K. Dick. Tessa's Philip's ex-wife from quite a while back in the 70s, I believe, and we just wanted to have her on a chat about her book and chat about the past and the current state of affairs. And thanks for coming on the show, Tessa. Appreciate you coming on and spending time with us.
Oh, glad to be here.
It was a very strange, somewhat synchronistic circumstance. I was on a long drive going to see my girlfriend. I was listening to John Keel's writings on an audiobook, Flying Saucers to the Center of Your Mind. And I was listening to the introduction. I was thinking, man, this is really interesting. Whoever wrote this introduction, and I went back and restarted it, and I realized it was you. And I was like, we should have Tess on the podcast. Because your experience seemed very interesting, back in the 60s and 70s. And then, sure enough, I found out from our friend at a shout out to Occulture, Ryan at Occulture Podcast, that he was also in contact with you. So I was like, hey, Ryan, pass me over Tessa's email so we can have her on. And thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, I'm getting passed around quite a bit now. It's kind of dizzying. But I was asked to write the introduction by I guess friend, at least more than acquaintance, but we lived miles and miles apart. And so I had to read it, of course. And I didn't have a copy, so he sent me one of the Flying Saucers. And I had no idea who John Keel was till I got that book. And now I have a few more, thanks to generous friends who share their books.
Now,
Keel is a very interesting author, a journalist, not just a storyteller. I'm afraid I'm more of a storyteller.
Yeah.
The documentary evidence on Phil is scant, really, and often mistaken. I've noticed all kinds of errors. But, of course, I'm not allowed to correct them because I'm just an ex-wife, Like I wasn't there when that happened. Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. So is that one of the reasons why you wanted to write your own book about it? I mean, you've written a couple things on about Phil, right?
Yes. My first memoir I wrote actually in the late 1980s, and I have enough rejection letters to paper a wall. They're all very nice. They like the book, but they don't think they can sell it. So when self-publishing came along, I published, I think close to 10 years ago now, my first memoir, Philip K. Dick, Remembering Fire Bright.
Mm-hmm.
And people kept asking for more, so I'm kind of slow and have other things to do, but I finally got the Conversations book finished and self-published that.
Good for you. That's I think it's important to get this other side of Phil out and your life with him, and especially I feel like Keel and Philip and Terrence McKenna and all these people that are sort of becoming cultural icons from the 60s and 70s. I feel like there's a bunch of people growing in popularity. And I was wondering, you being sort of running in some of those circles back then, did you ever think that would happen back then? Like, did you realize that you were, friends with some of these people?
Well, we didn't run in a lot of circles because Phil suffered from agoraphobia, and sometimes he couldn't even go out the front door, let alone go to a convention or even visit friends a couple blocks away.
Hmm.
But I did meet a few people, most notably, I think, Robert Heinlein.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Nebula Award ceremony, and Phil had been nominated, but he couldn't go. And everybody thought he was faking it when he said he had the flu. But actually, he was misdiagnosed. He had a hereditary gallbladder problem that, by the way, all three of his children suffer from as well.
Oh, is that the one where he thought he was poisoned by the mushrooms, and that he actually ended up?
Well, at that point, he had gallstones, but he also thought that the one time he bought some speed from his brother-in-law, he thought it was laced with some kind of poison because he got pancreatitis. And he didn't drink. You know, he'd enjoy a glass of wine or a shot of scotch occasionally, but he was not much of a drinker. Anyway, it turns out that every one of his three children has also had pancreatitis, and only one of them drinks a lot. The other two are straight as an arrow, and I'm not saying which one.
They're probably not listening anyways.
Yeah, but it's not cool to talk about Phil's children that way.
Yeah, of course. So what was that
anyway,
like? What was that like going to the Nebula Awards on Phil's behalf?
Well, I didn't know who those people were. I barely knew who Heinlein was. I didn't read science fiction. But Ray Bradbury was accepting on behalf of Arthur C. Clarke because Clarke couldn't leave Sri Lanka because he was waiting for citizenship. And Bradbury read one of his poems that he had written about Moby Dick and Shakespeare. And he said in his introduction that he knew his poetry was bad, but he had a captive audience, so he read the whole long poem, and it was bad. But he was such a delightful person. I wish I'd actually known him. Apparently, he said some very nice things about me, even though we'd never met. Anyway, Phil had been dreading going there anyway because he was afraid that Robert Heinlein might be angry with him for helping to spread a rumor that Heinlein lived in a house surrounded by an electric fence. Oh, Heinlein, it turned out, had a big box of Phil's books, and he wanted Phil to sign them for him. He was a fan.
Huh.
And I visited him really only once at his home. He did live behind a wall with an electric fence and a gate with a little box where you call in to ask him to open it. So that rumor was true. Apparently, both Heinlein and his wife had worked for naval intelligence, so they were very conscious of the need for security. He wasn't paranoid, he just really needed security.
Was Phil paranoid at all? I mean, he was having some break-ins and stuff like that, or you guys were when in his house, right? So part of it was hard. It was part of it was like to me, it felt like there was something going on, and there was people. I don't know if they were spying or whatever, because some of the mysteries were never really solved. But then apparently, you did find some people breaking in, right?
Yes, most of that was before I met him. The big hit on his house for example, was in 1971, and I met him in 1972.
Yeah.
But we did have just a college girl who actually used to live in our apartment, had kept her key, and she used to just sneak in and sit around reading our books and magazines. And when she saw us coming or heard us on the stairs, she would go out the window. But that was relatively harmless. But what happened to him before I met him, some kind of organized harassment was going on.
Right.
And I don't think we'll ever know who did it, but and people who have looked through the FBI files about Phil are disappointed because they only contain Phil's letters to them.
Oh, wow. So maybe it was the CIA, like Phil used to have some appreciation for the FBI, I believe, right?
He respected them and didn't like the CIA because it was pretty much founded by Nazis. It really was. They were not part of Paperclip, but Reinhard Gehlen organized our spies on the Soviet Union and then organized the spies for the Soviet Union to spy on us. Anyway, there was a CIA file on Phil, and I don't think anyone other than Phil has ever seen it. He read it and destroyed it. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but they were actually writing down the license plates of any car that stopped at Phil's house.
Wow.
Up in San Rafael, and doing background checks. They must have thought he was up to something.
What do you think that was? Like, why would they do that? I mean, Phil was obviously becoming a prominent writer and sci-fi and all that good stuff, and he was sort of, writing about the government in some ways. But why do you think they were showing that much interest?
Well, actually, that's what puzzled Phil and everyone else. He was not prominent at the time. In 1971, he was well known in France, and that was about it. But he had signed a petition in Ramparts magazine promising not to pay his income taxes until we got out of Vietnam. And, everyone on that list was probably a target. The funny thing is that when the IRS finally caught up with Phil, his income had been so little that he did not owe any taxes anyway. That's how obscure he was. Imagine being, let's see, 38 years old and asking your mother for money. He was in that position more than once.
So did you have any notion that he would become who he would, and so many, movies would be made out of his writings and that kind of stuff? Did you have any sense of that?
I didn't have a clue.
No?
I didn't have a clue. I knew that he deserved it, but we rarely get what we deserve, And he didn't live long enough to really enjoy the fame or the money that came with Blade Runner.
Right.
He was able to
Did they just
get a new
remake Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one in 1982. He was able to get a new car and pay off the mortgage on his condominium apartment. But he really wasn't wealthy. He was just finally financially secure.
Yeah.
And he did turn down millions of dollars when they wanted him to suppress his original novel so they could write a novelization of the movie. And he refused and had his own book reissued. And it wasn't called Blade Runner. It was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And that was, I think it was published in 1968, but it was really inspired by his life in the years before and after 1960, when he was married to Anne and lived on her farm up in Marin County.
Mm-hmm.
Anne had sheep, and Phil loved the sheep, but, you know, when they had lambs, the farm couldn't support the lambs, so they had to be slaughtered, and Phil had to help with that, and he just couldn't handle having to kill the lambs, so he made sure that the sheep never got to breed again so they wouldn't have babies.
Huh.
He really loved animals and didn't like that part of farming. And for a while, during our marriage, he decided to be a vegetarian. But it wasn't too long before he decided it was okay to eat fish. And then chicken was okay. But finally, he got to where he would eat a hamburger or something like that once in a while, but not often, because, you know, you have to kill an animal to make meat. I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with that too. I went through a fish only phase.
Pescatarian?
Yeah, pescatarian.
Pescatarian? I think Presbyterians are
By the way, he never gave up eggs. They don't count unless they're fertilized. But yeah, I like fish. Phil didn't really care for fish, but I love a good fish.
What's your favorite?
Oh, it's got to be halibut. Problem is, I'm not getting halibut because their population has been so overfished that it really wouldn't be right. So once in a while I get tilapia and make sure it really is tilapia and not something mislabeled.
I like bassa.
I used to love sea bass. I still like cod, but the tilapia and halibut are not as fishy, and their texture is really nice.
Yeah, I find a ton of ocean fish is fishy. I I find lake fish isn't so bad.
I've been eating salmon because of the DHA levels.
I had some salmon today, actually. Yeah. But I don't love it, you know?
Yeah.
I love shrimp and crab and shit.
I don't like lake fish. I, one time, because Phil thought I was such a terrible cook, well, in many ways, I still am. He got me a copy of The Joy of Cooking, and I studied it, and I managed to pull off a meal centered on trout in aspic. Phil loved it, but that's when I discovered that I don't like trout.
Was this in the phase where Phil was writing, like basically, writing nonstop, sleeping for a couple hours at a time, just waking up when he was inspired, that kind of thing when he was on that, and you were just helping him out with putting food in front of him to keep the guy going?
No, this was later when our son was very young, an infant, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, I had no idea that I didn't like trout until I made that. Oh, it was magnificent and beautiful and had watercress and all kinds of side dishes. But when I was a child, with the extended family, we used to fish for trout. And I always caught just one because even though I was a little girl, I was required to kill it myself, clean it myself, cook it myself, and eat it myself. And we'd cook them on a little wood fire right by the side of the lake. And I thought I liked the trout, but I don't. It was the whole experience.
Once you started eating other fish, you were like, that trout sucks.
Pretty much. I like the sea fish because they're salty. And lake fish are not. They're different. For example, the pink salmon and the red salmon are different. In general, the red ones are caught in the river where they're going to spawn, and the pink ones are usually from the ocean. So I'm lucky because red ones cost more, and I like the pink ones. Well, anyway.
So what about some of your experiences with Phil? Like I guess, I don't know if you would call them unexplained or paranormal or anything like that, or the fire bright. Can you talk about some of that at all? We do, we talk about a lot of that stuff on the show where listeners email in their experiences and we talk, openly about that kind of stuff. Can you mention some of that? Some of your personal experiences with Phil and those phenomena?
Sure. It has been 40 years or more. Let me think. 74 to 17. 6 and 20, 33, 43 years. I'm not that old. I still think I'm 26 until I try to, lift a box or reach a high shelf. Anyway, he started having serious problems with his teeth, and finally the pain got so bad that he went to the dentist, and the dentist told him he had to go to an oral surgeon and get an infected molar yanked out. Bill called it a wisdom tooth, but it wasn't. It was just a molar that had broken. He'd ground his teeth so badly that it broke because he was in pain and more afraid of the dentist than he was of the pain. And he was a chicken about the dentist, so he had the oral surgeon knock him out for the surgery to remove that tooth. And 74, I think I didn't have my license yet. That must be why we took a cab. I remember riding in a cab. I got my first driver's license when our son was almost a year old. Long story. Anyway, since we were taking a cab home, we just had the oral surgeon call in his prescriptions to the pharmacy that delivered to our house, apartment. Anyway, so we went home and Phil lay down, and he was still groggy from being knocked out for the surgery. But when the lady from the pharmacy came with his medication, even though I was up on my feet in the kitchen, he got out of bed and ran to the front door before I could get to it and got his antibiotics and painkillers. And the way he told it, he saw the lady's necklace, and it was a goldfish sign, and it zapped him with a pink light. Well, not exactly. He was trying to look down her blouse, and when he realized what he was doing, he asked her about her necklace as an excuse. He was groggy, but I'm not sure that's the reason he was looking. Anyway, he knew perfectly well what the fish sign was because we had one. We had bought a bumper sticker at the local Bible bookstore, and it was black and silver, and it had the fish sign, which Phil explained to me was an early Christian symbol, and that the cross was actually originally an insult and not a Christian symbol. But he knew what it was before he saw that necklace. The thing is, we didn't put the sticker on the car. We taped it up in the living room window on the west side where it faced the setting sun. So when he turned, I handed the girl the check and closed the door. Phil turned around to go to the bathroom and get a glass of water to take his pills. And the sun reflected off that window sticker briefly blinded him so that when he looked away, he kept seeing the after image, a pink rectangle with the fish sign in it. Then he went and took 2 of the pain pills, and he was supposed to take only 1. He went and lay down and started having visions.
Oh,
But
nice. Was it an opiate?
It was Percodan, which was an early form of Vicodin. The way Phil described it was that he was still in pain, but he didn't care, which sounds a lot like opium. Yeah, but it was not the first time in his life that he had visions. It was just really filled with much more content than ever before. He actually heard the radio talking to him. And I heard the radio, but it was popular music. We had to quit sleeping with the bedside radio on, which had become, our regular routine. But he heard in the songs, You're No Good by Linda Ronstadt and You're So Vain by Carly Simon. He heard them talking specifically to him and telling him that he was no good. I just heard the music, but the thing is, the radio was unplugged. It should not have been able to play anything. It did not have batteries. It was strictly plug into the wall.
Weird.
And it kept playing. Yeah, well, I think there was some source of microwave radiation nearby that was affecting our electrical appliances, specifically the radio. That can happen. For example, your smart meter can screw up your cell phone. not to mention interfering with your sleep. People who are particularly sensitive to electromagnetic radiation have real problems with these new smart meters. But, if you can pick up a radio station in your dental work, which does happen, obviously doesn't take a whole lot of power to make a radio play the station that it's tuned to.
So
I think that is what happened.
So did he have any inspiration or anything from these visions at all?
Oh, his whole exegesis, which runs something like 10,000 pages in manuscript.
Wow.
He was constantly exploring not only his visions, but also any ancient writing he could get his hands on, especially the Bible. He really diligently studied the writings of Paul, which is most of the New Testament. He also read philosophers and church fathers, which is, not exactly ancient, but a long time ago. And he read both philosophy and psychology from both the 1800s and the 1900s. He didn't live into the 2000s, or he would have read that too. And of course, we were really interested in the paranormal, so and there was no internet, but we'd watch In Search of, which was Leonard Nimoy's show exploring strange events like, why am I blank? Oh, the Philadelphia experiment, the Loch Ness Monster, ESP. Unfortunately, it really didn't have a whole lot of content. It was more
fluff,
attention grabbing, but not substantial. And the conclusions were always inconclusive. But we don't know if there's a Loch Ness Monster, but some people think there is. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I always liked unsolved mysteries. But I wasn't even born until the 80s, so.
Well, unsolved mysteries is cool, too. I miss some of the old shows, like, what was it on cable?
Sightings? Remember that one?
Yeah, Sightings, and I think the other one was called Unknown or something like that.
Unsolved Mysteries, maybe? No? Is that what you said there? Oh, sorry.
Well, could be. I have some of them on videotape. I taped them on my VCR, which still works, by the way.
Hope it doesn't break.
It's still working.
It's like the last one.
So what about?
I have one that I use and a spare in case it breaks down.
Perfect.
But the one that I use is actually professional grade.
So what about?
How long were you guys married?
Well, we married in 73 and divorced in 77. But, we had lived together for a year before we got married. Mm-hmm. So I say 5 years because living together kind of counts.
Yeah, definitely.
So I knew him for 10. Yeah, I knew him for 10 years, and we got along better after he didn't think he owned me.
Were you with him when the Firebright thing happened, or with that?
Yeah, that's how it started. Was with that toothache
Oh, that
and
was that. Okay.
oral surgery. Yeah.
I thought there was something about the blue light, or was that what?
About the what?
The blue light. Or that's what you were talking about with the thing in the window and all that?
Yeah.
Mm.
It was sometime after that he encountered the blue light dancing around in the air like a butterfly. But that was the beginning. It was late February in 1974 when he had the tooth extracted, and then more than a week later, the 3/2/74 incident happened, and that has caused confusion because in Europe, 3/2 would be February 3, but it was actually the second day of March. In England and Europe, they note the date backwards, and they say that we do it backwards.
We're in Canada, so we agree with them.
Okay. So we finally settled on just saying February and March of 74, since the original pink light happened in February. But on the second day of March, he got what he called the Xerox letter. He had been anxious ever since the first pink light experience, getting more and more paranoid, if you will, anxious, upset, frightened. And on the day that this Xerox letter came, he saw the mailman, you know, at the apartments. We were upstairs, and downstairs in the courtyard, there was a box with little boxes for individual apartments to receive mail. And Phil ran down there as soon as it was delivered and came upstairs with the mail, which was amazing because quite often his agoraphobia was so bad that he could not go downstairs to get the mail. And he selected one envelope, handed it to me, and said, "Don't let me see it, just tell me what's in it." Eventually, he did read it, even though he told me he wouldn't.
What is
Typical. Well, it was a Xerox copy of a book review. And I'm really not positive about what newspaper it had been published in, but it might have been WorldNet Daily. In any case, the book was about how terrible the United States is. Had all kinds of words underlined like deteriorate and rot and words to do with dying and rotting. It didn't have a return address, but it had a postmark in Austria. And my best guess is that it actually came from a rather well-known publisher, Franz Rothensteiner, who lived or lives, I think he's still living, in Austria. I can check that. I still have internet. Anyway, there was no note, no explanation, no return address, and just this Xerox copy of a book review. And I don't remember the title of the book. Oh, Franz Rothensteiner is still alive, age 75, and still in Austria. Anyway, it was a bit of a mystery, and Phil thought it was full of subliminal messages. I didn't think they were all that subliminal. But he sent off the Xerox letter to the FBI. So that was the beginning of a long correspondence with the FBI. But what he did, he wrote really crazy letters accusing people he knew of being communist infiltrators, and then threw those letters in the dumpster, the trash. And he said, well, if they're watching me, they'll get the letters, and if they aren't watching me, no harm done. But he kept carbon copies of all those letters, and they have turned up. And, you know, some of the people he denounced are quite outraged. But Phil was just trying to convince the authorities that he was insane, so they didn't need to bother him anymore.
Well, it's interesting how his style of writing was like paranoid fiction and science fiction and all this almost dystopian type stuff, where you wonder if, you know, like that seems to be like a parallel to really how he thought or lived his life in a way. Like, was there, and you know, there's a lot of people that would say he's right in doing so. Like, there is a lot of things to be paranoid about if you look at the world that way. Do you think he was, you know what I mean? Does it make sense that he was, that his writing style came out like that?
Well, from Phil's point of view, what he was writing was not so much fiction as
exactly.
realism.
Yeah.
And look at the world today.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was paranoid about surveillance and fascism taking over our country. And guess what? He pretty much predicted the Patriot Act and warrantless searches.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, he was justified in a lot of ways he's almost, you know, a forward thinker about that. A lot of these science fiction authors have an amazing grasp at the future. Right.
And it's even possible for an American citizen to be secretly arrested and imprisoned or possibly even executed without a trial and with no one ever knowing what happened.
Yeah. Have you been interested in this stuff all along, Tessa, from back then to now? Like, your interest in, you know, strange things, the paranormal, or this type of surveillance type stuff?
Yeah. You kind of would have had to be there when I was growing up. My parents got into radical right-wing politics, and they kind of discovered that they were in pretty much agreement with the radical left wing. There wasn't much difference. You know, different flag, but same code of honor. But yeah, they were in the Birch Society, and they knew Minuteman, but they also knew Weathermen and Black Panthers. And that kind of shocked me because Mom was so racist. Dad wasn't, but Mom was. Oh, well, whatever.
Those were the days, I suppose, that kind of stuff was pretty commonplace.
Yeah, and Mom, although she was insane and alcoholic, but she took it for granted that not only were psychic powers real, but that all her children had them, because she was sure that she had psychic powers, which explains how many times we were punished for things that she imagined we had done. I think the real problem was that she had a hangover.
So what do you think about the state of the world now as far as people, like we're talking on the internet right now, Phil was writing about a lot of this stuff back then, and you were alongside of him, even helping him write some stuff. And then nowadays we're talking about all this stuff openly. There's more acceptance. Do you think there's more acceptance? Do you think more people are switched on to something more than our physical reality right now?
It could be. I think as more and more manifests in what we know as the real world, more and more people are willing to at least consider not only the paranormal, but also the fascism that's taken over Western civilization in general.
Now, do you mean that as far as the old definition of fascism?
Well,
and not the new,
basically
altered definition.
It's a partnership. It's a partnership between government and corporations.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
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 Many people don't
Luckily,
understand that.
Antifa is here to save the day.
Yeah, well, it explains a lot, like why Monsanto can poison us and Nestle can steal our groundwater and sell it back to us in bottles.
Vaccines, it's just a mess.
Where I live, for example, they pump out millions of gallons of water every year, and they pay our county government $700 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
good profit margin on that.
When the activists learned that Nestle's lease had actually expired 20 years ago, the county fixed that. They renewed the lease. Gee, thanks. We've been in a drought for a decade, and all that water is, it's even worse than just taking it and selling it back to us. They remove all the minerals from it before they bottle it. You might as well drink tap water because tap water tastes better and is better for you. Well, anyway,
minus the fluoride in most places.
Well, where I live, they don't add fluoride to our water. That costs money.
Yeah, we don't have it here either. But there are some people fighting to get it back in, which is crazy to me.
Oh no, there's plenty of places fighting to get the fluoride out.
Exactly.
It's horrible. Now, we do have some natural fluoride from, underground rocks, but it's listed in our annual report as a contaminant. And it's a very small amount, and it isn't the same fluoride that they add. The fluoride that they add to our water is industrial waste. There's two primary sources. One, of course, is aluminum refining. The other is nuclear waste from nuclear power plants. Just what I wanted, radioactive fluorine in my water. Gee, thanks. You get the feeling that they really are trying to kill us all.
Exactly.
The politicians and the corporate executives don't eat the crap that they feed us. They have all natural, organic, blah, blah, blah. And they die before they drink tap water.
Well, I know Singapore has like the biggest concentration of billionaires in the world, and they also have the lowest infant mortality rate in the world. Like 2 kids per 1,000 or something like that day. U.S. is like 34.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's That figures.
So
I guess Granny was right. She refused to have children in the hospital, and she had both of her children at home.
So Tessa, do you think?
Sure.
Sorry, do you think there's an overarching agenda here like that? I mean, especially after, being married to somebody like Phil. Like, do you think there's an overarching agenda, or is this just the way big institutions end up going? The money ends up influencing people, the greed gets involved, or do you think there's a more of a nefarious agenda?
Well, I believe in conspiracies on Tuesday, but this is Wednesday. Sometimes I think it's a plan, and other times I think they're just stupid.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, what kind of business goes about killing their customers?
Yeah.
And getting back to fascism being a partnership between government and corporations, yeah, they're out for profit, all right. And they really do consider us to be inferior genetically and otherwise. Because if we weren't inferior, we'd be more like them, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse, them knowing or not knowing. Both scenarios are pretty scary, really.
Oh, well, I'm not exactly a fan of Donald Trump, but I do like the fact that he's introduced some chaos into the system.
Exactly. Yeah. Sort of shining the bright light on what was really going on, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and whether he knows it or not, he's actually opening doors for people to make changes.
Yeah.
I don't hold out much hope if we don't make changes.
I just don't hold out much hope.
Yeah.
Phil, once had decided to immigrate to Canada and apply for citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
That was also before I met him. I think it was like December of 71 or January of 72.
Mm-hmm.
But he was abducted by men in black. That isn't what he called them. We didn't know anything about men in black, but he thought they must have been some kind of government agents because they were wearing black suits. Anyway.
And like you said, this was before his prominence, right? So that's very, telling about why he would become so into this paranoid fiction. I mean, if he's had these experiences before he was even famous for writing dystopian type stuff, I mean, it's understandable.
Yeah, well, as the way Phil explained it was, you don't have to be important. You only have to come to their attention.
Yeah.
As many people say, if the cops know you, you must have done something wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And I've run into that where I knew a deputy because my son had taught him martial arts. And all the other deputies assumed he must have arrested me at some point because I knew him. It took a long time to work that out and disabuse them of that misconception. Actually, I've never been arrested. The worst I had was a speeding ticket in 1980. And I was speeding. I was going about 95, and the nice little officer wrote me up for 75, so I just mailed in my check and counted my blessings.
Exactly.
So if he'd written 95, he would have had to arrest me and impound my car.
So Tessa, is there anything else you want to
That's
mention about
happened to me
your
before.
book? Yeah, Darren's had a couple cars impounded. He's had a bad traffic record, Darren.
It's better now.
Yeah, well, when I'm going through Kern County, that's just the top of Southern California, around Bakersfield, I set the cruise control for a couple miles under the speed limit, and I watch, and every car that passes me gets pulled over. They're really, really on top of speeders in that part of our state.
Well, that's good to know because we have a ton of listeners in California. So heads up, guys.
Yeah, don't speed on I-5 going through Kern County.
So I
Just
guess
don't.
we got about 5 minutes left here. What would you say if you had to pick one as your most memorable conversation with Philip?
I suppose that would have to be when he finally explained why he left me and then told everyone else that I left him. I don't know why they believed him. He was the one who had a new apartment, new furniture, well, some new furniture, plus all of the things he had the moving van take from our home. And it was like the end of his novel, Radio Free Albemus. He was sure that his enemies were going to get him, and he wanted to protect me and our son from his enemies by making them think that he didn't care about us. It might have been crazy, but his enemies never got us, which doesn't prove a thing, because we don't know that he had enemies at that point in his life.
Yeah.
It's like, I do a certain ritual and no purple dragons come down from the sky. Does that prove that it works, or?
That's what happens if you eat stems instead of caps.
Uh-oh. Well, I always think of the old fun song, Flying Purple People Eater. Everyone's afraid of the flying purple people eater.
Yeah, I
but it
remember
turns out he only eats purple people.
Right on, Tessa. Well, thanks for coming on and talking about your book.
Well, this has been fun, and I wish we had a little more time, but I understand you have other things to do.
Yeah, sorry about that. We were running a little late earlier. We're kind of trying to cram too many things into the studio here.
Well, life happens. If it didn't, that wouldn't be acceptable.
Well, I really encourage people to buy this book and support you and your work, Tessa. And, I wanted to get you on and talk about it. And, it's interesting, some of the experiences you've had. So really appreciate your time with that. Is there something that, do you have a website there that I can link to or something like that for people to buy this? How would you like people to buy this?
Oh, Amazon is the best place. It is available elsewhere, but as I said, Amazon's the best, and you can find all my other books listed on Amazon. And my website is my name, TessaDick.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes.
Okay.
And are you going to be...
Remember,
go ahead.
Your purchase of a book will help a starving writer.
Exactly.
Hopefully a bunch of our listeners will buy the book too.
I know we have some people interested in Phil and your stuff, so it'll be good.
We'll have you back on again. Oh,
Thank
back on
you.
down the road, and we'll do this when we got a little more time.
Looking forward to it.
All right, Tessa, thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. We'll be in touch, and we'll send you a link when it comes out as well. And yeah, let us know if you're going to any conferences or doing anything like that, if people want to meet up with you.
The only one I know of is next March.
Okay.
The 1st and 2nd of March in Fort Morgan, Colorado, where Phil and his sister Jane are buried.
Yeah.
We'll head down for that.
I went last March, and they've invited me to return.
Nice. What is that? What conference is that?
It's the Philip K. Dick Festival.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't know if they have anything out on the net just yet.
I'll look for it and I'll put it in the show notes if it's there.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Tessa.
you.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.